Item 10B, adopt a resolution authorizing the city manager to execute a contract with Moffitt and Nickel to provide assistance for appeal of the FEMA San Francisco Bay Coastal Study results for the city of San Bruno in the amount of $61,262 and appropriating funds in the amount of $81,262 from the general fund.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. I'm going to make some introductory remarks and then turn over to our Public Services Director, Jimmy Tan. The purpose of my short introduction is to highlight the importance of this particular agenda item and the work effort that Mr. Tan in particular has undertaken over the last year, both to understand the technical complexity of the FEMA flood hazard analytical and mapping process that has included San Bruno, or a portion of San Bruno, in the federal flood hazard zone for the first time. And secondly, that work effort has been directed to understanding how to navigate what is a very complicated and difficult federal bureaucratic procedure that is incorporated within the FEMA process and regulations. And again, because of our lack of experience with these regulations, this has been a foreign territory for San Bruno and has created a great deal of effort both to understand and, as I said, to be able to maneuver and to address the needs of our residents. And that's the specific purpose of my comments, is to highlight that the reason this item is important to us is that the work effort by staff, the expenditure of city resources for 2 previous contracts with our technical experts, Moffitt and Nichols, and our recommendation to you tonight for a 3rd contract is solely directed at addressing the impact that mapping into the flood hazard zone will create for residents of our community. As Mr. Tan will further address specifically with the details, there are approximately 460 properties on the east side of El Camino that are subject to a requirement to obtain what we believe could be costly flood hazard insurance as a result of this mapping procedure by FEMA. The work effort that we've undertaken that Mr. Tan has directed over the last year and that we are continuing is solely directed at making sure that we make every effort to address in advance the improvements that may be needed in order to reduce the area of impact in our community and to work through the FEMA process that we're still trying to understand to make sure that we can remove as many of those affected properties as possible. We've been in front of the council, as I indicated, 2 previous times and an additional for contract awards and an additional time as an informational item. And we will be embarking soon on a public outreach campaign, which, as Jimmy will explain to you in a moment, FEMA will not be assisting us with. So this is an important and, as I indicated, difficult process for the city of San Bruno, but one that we believe is vitally important to the residents of our community. So with that, I'd ask the director to give you all of the technical details.
Thanks, Connie. Good evening, honorable mayors and members of the City Council. As City Manager mentioned, that we brought this item to the Council several times as it is important to our community and will likely have a significant financial impact to some of our residents once the flood maps are finalized. And staff has been continuously working with the County of San Mateo, FEMA, Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office, and our consultant, Moffitt and Nickel, to try to understand and evaluate the impacts and determine the next steps to help our residents affected in the community. And FEMA has already completed this study and has determined the flooding area and are ready to revise this base flood elevation for coastal communities. And the result of the study will be used for FEMA to update their flood insurance rate maps, otherwise known as FERMs. In August of 2015, FEMA already distributed the preliminary FERMs to all affected agencies for review. The entire city of San Bruno was categorized in previous FEMA FERMs as Zone D. Zone D is used by FEMA for areas where there are possible but undetermined flood hazards, since no flood hazard analysis was conducted. And property owners in Zone D are encouraged to purchase flood insurance, but it is not federally required or by mortgage lenders. And this slide shows the new mapping that FEMA has conducted for our community. The blue area highlights, all the residents that will be affected by this new mapping. There are approximately 460 residential properties, as the city manager mentioned, within the Bear Area neighborhood. It's potentially being inundated by flooding. And these properties were categorized as Zone D, but will now be in a higher risk flood zone indicated by Zone AE. And properties being mapped into Zone AE do not have an option to purchase flood insurance like Zone D, but will be required to purchase flood insurance if the property has a mortgage from a lender. The option of whether to purchase flood insurance or not is only available if the property is completely paid off, and that's the only option. So what has the city done since we were informed of this FEMA mapping? The city has performed numerous coordination and activities leading towards to the recommendation to file an appeal. The slide shows the timeline of various events that took place since we were informed, starting in July 2014, and FEMA outreach to all the agencies in San Mateo County, and held a workshop back in October 2014 to provide agency with an overview of the study results. Unfortunately, our city was never informed of the study by FEMA, and was informed back in November 2014. Instead, when FEMA started to requesting these comments of the draft FERMs by the due date of December 2014. The city staff spoke to FEMA and they provided us with an extension to file these comments, and we were provided an extension of February 2015 to submit these comments. And staff came to council in end of January to award a contract to Moffitt & Nichol to review the FEMA draft maps and provide comments. And these comments were submitted on time to FEMA in February. And another meeting was conducted with FEMA at end of March, and with representatives from the city, FEMA, County of San Mateo, and Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office, and our consultant Moffitt & Nichol. And the discussion of the meeting focused on the overall FEMA schedule, on the development of the maps and the source of flooding, clarification responses from these comments that we provided to them, and FEMA's procedures to submit additional information for further review. Then staff came back to council again in May of 2015 to award an additional contract to Moffitt & Nichol. And this contract was for performing additional hydraulic analysis so the city will have a better understanding of this coastal flooding in the region, and to determine whether the extent of the flooding could be reduced within the Bear Area neighborhood compared to FEMA's maps. And this report was completed in August of 2015. And the result of the study showed that the flooding area was significantly smaller than FEMA's model in the Bear Area neighborhood when tide duration is factored into their analysis. So the evaluation that Moffitt & Nichol performed included time duration of the flood event, where FEMA model is static. It doesn't take into account any time during the tide. So you also assume an infinite amount of water coming in, but nothing was really going back out. And FEMA applied this very simple mapping methodology so that any area under the flood elevation would be flooded. And in our city, in San Bruno, they determined the flood elevation in our model to be 10.4 feet above sea level. So any properties under the 10.4 feet, it's considered flooded. And the study also determined 3 sources of flooding that impacted San Bruno. One is from the deficient south bank elevation of the navigable slough, which is located in South San Francisco. The other is from the uncertified tie gate structure at the end of San Bruno Channel, located at the near the long-term parking structure. And lastly, the water is coming across the airport due to the uncertified levees that they have there as well. And the study also evaluated whether flooding inundation within Bear Area neighborhood would be reduced if mitigation measures were completed for each of these flooding sources. And the result depicted that there's significant change in potential flood areas if there were mitigation measures completed. And the city also has been coordinating with Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office to help facilitate discussions with FEMA as well. And a letter was sent to FEMA by Congresswoman Jackie Spears' office at the end of December to request the FEMA to delay the appeal for the city and provide additional 6 months for the city to prepare an appeal, since the city was informed late on these draft maps. And FEMA unfortunately sent a letter back to the Jackie Spears' office in February, stating that that FEMA would not grant postponement of the appeal to the city. So on March 4th, just recently, the city held a meeting with Supervisor Pine's office, Moffett and Nickel, the Director of Public Works for South San Francisco, and County of San Mateo, and city representatives to discuss the results of this Moffett and Nickel hydraulic analysis and discuss the county efforts and their assistance with accreditation of their facility. The tie gate structure, as I mentioned, is owned by the county, and the county is currently moving forward with hiring Moffett and Nickel as well to evaluate the certification of this tie gate structure. So since the city became first aware of this FEMA mapping process, the schedule has changed several times by FEMA, and this slide was brought to you back in September 22nd, and it's changed substantially here. The FEMA did complete the release of their preliminary firms in August of 2015, but now it's past December, and they still haven't advertised in the Federal Register publication yet, as they were planning to do in December. So that postponement has delayed the appeal process, which was originally scheduled in January 2016 through March 2016. And as of last week, confirmed with FEMA, they haven't opened up the appeal process yet. So we still have some time on that. Once the appeal period begins, there's 90 days to submit an appeal document. Then the final map determination by FEMA will be completed 6 months after the appeal period. Finally, the new firms will become effective approximately 6 months after the end of resolving all the appeal. So it was originally scheduled for February 2017, so it's most likely it could be summer of 2017 before this new rate maps become effective. And unfortunately, FEMA has been very inflexible. Staff tried to schedule a meeting with FEMA representatives to show the additional hydraulic analysis, and that was completed by Moffett and Nickel, and FEMA refused to meet with us and provide any guidance and directed staff to submit the documents during the appeal period. Staff also requested a meeting with FEMA representatives in January of this year, and they denied our request, stating that the meetings are organized once the community is comfortable with the map revisions to avoid unduly confusing residents and business owners. And this means that the city would have to initiate public outreach on our own without FEMA technical assistance or support. So staff is recommending the council to consider filing an appeal to FEMA, and staff believes that submitting an appeal is the only way to get FEMA's attention of our analysis, although we cannot predict FEMA's ultimate decision on our appeal. This is our best available strategy to get FEMA to review our analysis and hopefully accepts it, so our residents within the newly mapped flood areas will not be subjected to paying mandatory flood insurance. Moffett and Nickel proposals to refine the hydraulic analysis and to prepare a formal appeal package to FEMA is approximately $61,000. The scope consists of refining the hydraulic analysis and preparing a formal package for FEMA's review. And then the work includes updating the model using FEMA's latest hydraulic information since they just completed the preliminary maps, performing simulations, preparing detailed report maps, and compiling the information to send to FEMA. And in order to avoid delay in coming back in completing this work, staff is recommending authorization for additional contingency in the amount of $20,000 to cover for any unexpected additional analysis that's needed. Currently, there's no available funding that can be used to cover the cost of this contract, and staff is recommending an appropriation in the amount from the general fund. And that concludes my presentation. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Good. Any questions for staff at this time? Ken?
Jimmy, is any other jurisdiction, any other city being affected in similar ways, such as Foster City, San Mateo? And are they all sort of in the same boat, so to speak?
Yes, a lot of the communities are in the same situation. Because FEMA remapped a lot of the coastal communities, which includes Marin County, Custer County, San Mateo County, and Santa Clara County.
I'm somewhat familiar with the issues in San Mateo with their flood zones. And so, is there a way that that we're going to collaborate and appeal to FEMA?
So
As
we
a group?
did. We have had several collaborative conversations with the city of South City because we share the specifics of the flood hazard. The water is coming from the same place into both of our communities. The situation in South City is just a little bit different in that community's flood hazard zone, or the new flood hazard zone, is primarily commercial properties. And so we discussed but decided that it was most beneficial for us to pursue separate appeals. It's our understanding that South City is also pursuing an appeal. They similarly have contracted for work with Moffitt and Nichols, and we are collaborating in all aspects of that procedure. I just want to also highlight, we've deliberately given you a fairly detailed perspective tonight about what we've done so far. I described earlier why we've done it. But I wanted to also identify that even though this process has been very difficult and information is hard to get, and it's very difficult to collaborate with FEMA to assist our understanding and to develop strategies that might have a probability of meeting the requirements of FEMA. Mr. Tan has been very aggressive, not only in working with the other nearby communities, but when he became aware that other communities on the other side of the bay in Alameda County have successfully in the past made appeals to FEMA, he's taken the time and energy to learn about what was successful for them, what type of analysis, what are the types of technical information and argument that will be likely to be most compelling to FEMA. So we're working at a little bit of a handicap, but I believe that we have really done a good job and are feeling that we have a bit more confidence about not only what the regulations are, but what might be the best approach in order to get FEMA's attention and to have an opportunity for success. Unfortunately, the decision on the appeal is made by FEMA, and again, they do that sort of in a black box, so it's very difficult to predict whether we will be successful. Staff believes that our every effort is necessary to do everything that we can to try and address the situation at the front end, and we hope to remove as many properties as possible before the regulations actually take effect in San Bruno.
So over 400 properties, mostly residential properties. What is a cost of this required flood insurance? Is there general understanding of?
It could be as little as $1,000 a year or $5,000 a year.
Anyone else? Any action? Irene?
I just want to comment, and I want to compliment Jimmy. He is being very modest when he says he's gone to several meetings. He's gone to many meetings, and they are very difficult because the FEMA people that, at least the meetings I've been to with him, they're not interested particularly in finding solution to anything. They presented their information, and that's it. To them, that's it. So it's very difficult for us because it's our city and it's where we live, and we've never had to have flood insurance in this area. And I know Jimmy and Connie Jackson are working very hard to not only understand what FEMA is telling us and why they're telling it the way it is, but also to find some pathway so that people don't have to spend $1,000, $5,000 a year in probably our lowest income area. I know it's a high rental area as well. You all know rentals are extremely volatile. If the landlords have higher insurance, they're going to pass it on to their rentees, and that's going to go up. So it's going to be a very difficult situation for everyone. So I strongly support this. Again, to echo what Connie said, there's no guarantees that it'll get anywhere, but I believe it's not money wasted because we have to find every avenue we can to help alleviate this situation. So unless there's other questions, I'd like to introduce the...
If I could just, yeah. What more can Congresswoman do? I know she's helped in trying to extend the time, but how does she feel? How does her office feel about this non-engagement of FEMA? You know?
Yeah. So the Congresswoman's office has been extremely helpful to us, and beyond attempting to get the extension, the letter that the Congresswoman wrote and the response that she received is in your packet. I would say the primary benefit that we've received by collaboration with the Congresswoman's office is, in the absence of a robust relationship with FEMA, where FEMA would essentially help us to understand the regulations and the various avenues for addressing the issues in our community. Brian Perkins in the Congresswoman's office, who has a much better understanding and experience with the regulations, has essentially fulfilled that role in assisting us, and we will continue to take advantage of his wise counsel. And if there is an opportunity to request the Congresswoman's support again, I'm sure that they would be willing to assist.
Marty?
I was wondering if we made any contact with the people that live in that potential flood zone yet, and just to share that information. And also, is there any, in the case of a sale of a property, that if somebody were to buy that property and we now know that it could be in a potential flood zone, is there something that we should be sharing with the sale of that property?
So once the properties are mapped into the flood hazard zone, and not until then, it becomes a disclosure that must be made when the property is transferred. The city is not directly involved in that, and at this point, and we will have no involvement in that going forward. Our effort is to address the technical
Sure.
evaluation and to see if we can't minimize the area of impact, and to forward, to advocate and stay on those agencies that are responsible for the 3 areas of improvement at the airport, at the navigable slough, and at the tide gate. None of those can be done independently by the city of San Bruno. They're all outside of our jurisdictional control and responsibility. So our role is to work with those agencies and to make sure that those projects are receiving the priority that they need in order to move forward expediently.
But we're going to wait until it's finalized and then inform the residents? Or are we kind of giving them a heads up, like?
No, the public engagement process, we've been focused on getting an appeal into the queue.
Okay.
And once we're a little bit further down the road with that, it will be necessary for us to initiate public engagement. We'll be looking to hopefully collaborate with Congresswoman Spears' office on that, as well as Mr. Tan has identified some other knowledgeable consultants and real estate professionals, for example, who are much more familiar with the issues of insurance and that type of thing. So we'll be taking advantage of those contacts to put together an outreach program, and that will begin within the next couple of months.
Irene?
I'll introduce the resolution.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Rico Medina.
Aye.
Councilmember Ibera.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Marty Medina.
Aye.
Mayor Ruane.
Aye.